Kei aku nui, kei aku rahi, tēnei ka mihi atu ki a koe I tēnei ahi pō, nau mai whakatata mai, nau mai whakapiri mai, nau mai whakakotahi mai ki tēnei o ngā wānanga. I runga I te whakaaro te wāhi ngaro, me nui tātai kia tutiki pai ngā wawato I tēnei hui. Wairea I runga, wairea I roto, wairea I ngā taukaya ki wangi ngā tātou katoa, e rongo whakaira ki runga, tūturu whakamaua kia tīnga, haumie huie, tai ki e. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome to the third installment of the series, the third out of three. And as you can tell, I've had a shave. I had to get rid of the beard and I'm feeling the cold already now. It made the worst decision of my life in the winter. That being said, we've got another great speaker lined up for everyone. So for those watching live now, you're in for a treat. And for those watching later on when this is played back, you're in for a treat as well. Before we get started, for those joining us now or those who might jump on later, typical Zoom rules, keep yourself on mute. If you do have any questions, throw them in the chat function below or flick your hand up and we'll come to you at the end and we'll get some questions. It is going to be a lot of question time. We've already got some questions stacked up, but please send them through if you do have any. So with that, we'll get into it. But before we get into the questions and the kōrero for today, we're going to play a quick video.
My name's Kathy Broadhead. I'm the founder and lead educator of Nature Library New Zealand, and we run several different programs. The first is Nature Kids. We run a weekday nature school, 3 different locations around the Bay of Plenty, and also Nature Kids Holiday Club, which is in the school holidays. And our kaupapa is all about helping our tamariki to connect or reconnect with nature, to develop a love, a respect for nature through experience. So it's through connecting with nature, learning in nature, playing alongside nature with others, that they develop this relationship, which ultimately leads them to want to take care of it because they love it.
My favourite thing about being in nature is probably just going around and collecting seed pods and just like relaxing outside. I actually quite like going to the rock pools and looking around in the rock pools. All sorts like crabs and anemones and shrimp and seaweed and heaps of really cool shells.
I believe it is the most important thing for tamariki to have that connection with nature if we want them to be the future guardians and keepers of our natural environment, because without time connecting with nature, learning in nature, playing, exploring, developing a relationship, they're never going to know it. And if you don't know something, you can't love it, and if you don't love something, then you can't take care of it, or you won't take care of it. So we protect what we love, right? And so that's why it's just so important to help our tamariki reconnect with nature.
What a cool kaupapa. I had an idea coming into this what it was, but seeing that video, I think I'm already going to go off script. As I said, we've already got a few questions here. But the first question, how did you get into this?
That is a great question. I think it all started in my childhood, you know, like we were given these incredible opportunities to just be outside all the time. We had these big backyards and we just spent so much time outside that I had that opportunity to develop a relationship with the natural world, with Papatuanuku, and I just absolutely loved it. And I spent my whole life kind of connecting with nature, learning in nature, exploring in New Zealand and abroad. And I just always had such a love for it that I wanted to look after it and protect it. And I thought, what is the best way I can do this? And it was through sharing my love of nature with others and giving them the opportunities that I had as a child, which I recognize that perhaps children don't have so much now, to connect with nature, to have experiences and develop that relationship, and love it. And it is a relationship, like you get so much from nature, you get as much as you give. So it took me a little while to get there, but I got there, and I studied undergrad marine and environmental science, and even then I knew I wanted to work with kids in nature. And then I went on and I worked in resource management for a little while, and part of that was educating the community, educating people about the importance of protecting our resources and managing them wisely, working with some schools and kids. And then I was like, actually, no, I want to be doing my own thing. I want to be working with kids in nature and giving them experiences. So I went on and continued my study. I did my teaching diploma, and then my master's in environmental education. And it was really through that, especially through my research, that I learned just how critical time spent connecting with nature and having hands-on experiences in the natural world is for children, for tamariki, for anyone really, to develop those pro-environmental behaviours, or, well, first just to develop a love, a care, a empathy with the natural world that leads to that. And so I was like, right, that's it, that's what I have to do. And so, it took a while, but I started Nature Library about 4.5 years ago, and I started full-time. I was working doing environmental education for a couple of other organisations, and when I started my business, and then I went full-time in it 2 years ago, right before the first lockdown. So that was great timing.
Give us a quick rundown on what the Nature Library is.
We're really all about our kind of kaupapa, what we believe is that, or what we want to put into the world is that we want to help tamariki, we want to help children connect with, learn in, and develop a love of nature. And we also support kaiako teachers to do the same by using nature as their classroom and as their co-teacher, because where are all the kids? Most of them are in schools and behind desks, or a bit of time spent outside, but a large chunk of time inside. And there's just so many wonderful learning opportunities out there for kids that are in school, or kids that are lucky enough to come out of school one day a week to me at nature school or in the holidays.
It sounds like an easy sell. I mean, surely most families, most schools and most teachers would be really keen on this, getting them involved. How hard is it to get kids involved in nature and connect them?
It's getting easier. I think, with a couple of lockdowns under our belts and time, kids spending time at home with their families and just having kind of a small space to be in, the value of time spent in nature by parents, by families, by guardians has definitely increased. Certainly after the first lockdown, I was getting a lot more inquiries from families about coming to nature school or even to the holiday program. With schools, it's a little harder, and that's something I'm really passionate about developing and growing, and I've been working on that quite a bit this year. It's tricky. It is quite tricky getting schools to kind of recognize and value and see that the learning can take place, the learning that happens in the classroom can actually also happen outside in nature, as well as just these enormous benefits for the tamariki, like in every major way, for their development, for their growth, for their well-being. You know, the research is backing this up now. What we've always kind of known or felt in our hearts, that you know, nature just supports children's growth in just so many ways. And not only that, you know, the benefits for them socially, emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally, for their well-being, but also academically. You know, everything that you can teach in a classroom, or almost everything you can teach in a classroom, can be transferred and taught in the natural environment, and usually with a lot more engagement from the tamariki, and a lot more joy and wonder, and even for the teachers too. You know, there's a lot of research talking about how teachers who spend at least 2 hours a week teaching in the outdoor classroom, how they have improved job satisfaction, less stress. You know, like, who doesn't want that, right? As well as for our tamariki, who are under enormous amounts of stress at the moment. And being in nature, I mean, even just looking at nature can reduce our blood pressure. You know, it can slow our heart rate down. It can help us to breathe deeper. It's just massive for, for calming and stress, and so much.
All right, we've got a couple of questions here, but I'm going to try order them in what I call chronological order, as sort of move through this journey of yours. So those are two questions. One, what are some tips to get children involved in nature, or connecting with nature?
Yeah.
And two, any good examples, or what are the highlights? What do kids love when it comes to the nature aspect?
In my experience, kids love anything to do with being outside. Like, so I operate in 3 different nature spaces for nature school. So Tapuna Quarry Park, out at Waihi Beach where I live, on a private property, and also at the Mount. And we have a little base at the Mount, which is where the video was taken. And there's not much there. There's, you know, 3 or 4 trees. There's a little garden with some bushes. There's a lot of birds around. But honestly, the kids are just as happy to stay there and climb trees and search for seed pods, or create things with nature, or find sticks and make huts, and then, you know, they're just as happy doing that and get so much out of that as they are going across the road to the rock pools and exploring there, like Harry said. You know, it made me laugh actually, how the first thing he said is, I really like just looking around in nature and finding seed pods, and you know, it's really just the simple things. We don't have to think about it too much. So in terms of wanting to help, you know, our own children, or the children in our class, to connect with nature, I think the first step is just stepping outside the door and you know, going outside and just let the kids lead. You know, they have this like innate connection with nature that unfortunately they don't get to experience quite as much as they used to, or maybe we used to. But there's this just kind of innate natural connection between tamariki and te taiao nature. And it's just beautiful to see the way that they can find learning, find joy, find wonder, find connection, and communicate, collaborate, show empathy, care for, all on their own, you know?
I've got a 3-year-old, and he'd be happy in a pile of dirt
Yeah.
We've got a pile of dirt outside that he just loves connecting with.
Yeah.
We've got a really good question here from Fiona. So for family, basically, how do we mobilize these children once they're connected to nature and they've got that buy-in? How do we get them into taking action to protect it? And additionally, how can environmental care groups mobilize them? And that sounds terrible. Last thing I want to do is use kids for labor, but the sentiment being, how can we show them that there is a pathway here that they can use that connection to protect what they are enjoying?
I think, and you might not like my answer, Fiona, that, you know, for kids at least that are kind of under 12, 13, they just need opportunities to experience nature, to play, to explore, to create, to develop that relationship with the natural world first. Because if they don't have those experiences and they don't develop that meaningful relationship with the natural world, anything we do to say to them, okay, well, we're going to go plant dunes, or we're going to, you know, do a coastal kind of beach cleanup, it doesn't have the same meaning and depth. It's not going to have that long-term, ingrained, kind of meaningful, enduring, pro-environmental behavior that we want them to have. And so for me personally, I don't ever say, right, we're going to go and do this for nature. Like, I let that come from the tamariki. We have a kaupapa that we talk about, and it's about whakautia, or showing respect, or, you know, being respectful to ourselves, to others, and to papatuanoku, to nature. And from that, and kind of weaving that through everything we do and through their experiences in nature, they do things. They're like, oh, there's some rubbish, I'm going to pick that up. What's happening here? Oh, you know, these plants here, or oh, there's an octopus, it's washed up on the beach and it's sitting on a big bit of kelp. What can we do to help it? You know, like, and I think that's just so powerful to let them get there on their own, because it's gonna be so meaningful and so enduring for them for their whole lives. And this is something I've always kind of felt, because I think that was my experience. And since sort of feeling that and kind of knowing that in my body, doing my research and, you know, continuing to learn about, you know, the best ways to kind of engage tamariki in nature, that is actually what the research shows as well, is that, yeah, particularly for children sort of 12, 13 and under, it's giving them these opportunities, regular contact with nature, to just develop that relationship. And then they're going to want to do those things. That's when they're going to ask the question, oh, I saw, I don't know, what's an example? I can give you an example, actually. It's pretty cool. So one of the nature kids, Harry, who's been coming for a long time, actually, he was on the video. He's been coming for almost 3 years to nature school. And I think, you know, before that, his family, his parents really valued at least spending time in nature, you know, with the family. And last year, I think it was, there was this big craze around the poppets and the fidgets, you know, the plastic poppets and fidgets. And he came to nature school one day and he was upset. He was like, what, Kathy, I just don't understand. Like, why are all these kids bringing these poppets and fidgets for, you know, to school to play with? Like, if they just go into nature, they can find lots of things to play with. And anyway, he spent that day, he said, have you got a bag I can use? So I got him a bag, and he spent that day collecting different things from nature to take to his class so that they could use them instead of the plastic things, and to just kind of shine a light. Because he's like, Kathy, they're just going to end up in landfill. Like, they're, you know, they're going to use them for a couple of weeks and they're just going to end up in landfill. And that's, you know, and he sort of talked about that quite a bit, and he was quite concerned. And he said, you know, if I bring them these things and show them these things, you know, they can use these instead of the plastic poppets and fidgets. And to the point where, you know, around that time they were doing their school speeches. And so he wrote his school speech about it. You know, and it's that sort of thing. Like, no one told him to do that, but he was so passionate about it. He saw a problem and he was like, okay, I've got the solution for this. And he actually followed it through. So yeah, that's just one example of, you know, probably many, but it doesn't, I guess, solve the problem for the care groups, except maybe in that, are there opportunities for care groups to just have days where tamariki can come along and just be in that environment? Could they set up a nature play day, you know, where they invite tamariki or families to come along and there's no planting or there's no picking up rubbish or anything like that. It's like, hey, come and hang out in this awesome space, get to know this space, and then, you know, that's it, and see what happens. Maybe they see someone picking up rubbish. Maybe they see someone planting something and they're like, oh, what's that about? You know, it piques their interest, but they're there to enjoy the space and just actually connect with nature and develop that relationship with it, which is going to lead to them actually, you know, maybe it's next week, maybe it's 6 months, maybe it's 6 years. But what we really want is we want tamariki who are, it's coming from their hearts, because they're the ones that are going to be, you know, here talking to people in, I don't know, 40 years. I'll give away how old I am.
And Fiona did pick up on that suggestion, saying, yeah, having open days where they could perhaps learn about the bird life. I would dare say that the same can be said for adults. Some people might get turned off by or turned away by the thought of planting, trapping, climbing up a hill, whereas if it's a, hey, just come have a chat with us, or come hear what we might have to say about this nature. With that in mind then, is there a specific way that children should connect with nature? And I'm talking specifically around trapping. Is that a put-off? You know, do we have to control how they connect with nature, or can we open the doors for anything?
I think you can open the doors for anything and you can try things. I just think for a lot of children, being told we should care about this, like this is a bad thing that's happening, and you need to help us fix it, it's kind of a negative, right? And we want to empower them and give them opportunities to see how beautiful the world is and how amazing it is, and how, wow, look at these incredible birds here, you know, like the tui in the tree at our base at the mount. Like, just look how beautiful that is. Like, and then maybe that it can be dropped into the conversation. Or I guess a good example is, you know, we don't talk about trapping or anything like that, but sometimes we come across traps, and so they're curious, right? And they're like, well, what is this? What does it do? And then the conversation can happen organically and naturally, and it's like, well, this, you know, the traps are here for this reason, and then it just plants a seed. You know, we're wanting to plant those seeds that might take a little while, like seeds do, to kind of germinate and grow and bloom, but they do because they've had those opportunities. And I guess, yeah, I personally feel, and from my experience and from the research that I know of, particularly for those tamariki 12, 13 and under, it's the experience of nature that are kind of recognised as most important. Not that they're not having an experience when they're going trapping, and for some kids that'd be super exciting, you know, but I think, yeah, for other kids it could be a turn off, and so it's difficult. But even if we could get a bit of a balance, you know, come and hang out with us in the bush and, you know, explore and play and do a fun experience. And then, oh, we'll show you these traps and tell you about them. And then, hey, if this is something you feel good about, you could come back another time and help us.
Apologies for looking out the window. Someone turned up and I was like, who's this? I think the same about adults when it comes to trapping. In my background with predator management, often we say, here, do this trapping, here's some interesting trapping, trapping's cool. And when we've gone beyond engagement, we're basically demanding or telling them. But I like your idea of just, hey, if the opportunity is there for them to connect that way, so be it, but there's plenty of other ways they can connect. You mentioned something about when they ask questions. As kids are, they ask questions about everything and anything. How do you answer all of the different questions you get?
I actually don't.
I was hoping you'd say, I know everything.
No, I actually don't know everything. And, you know, yeah, there's a lot of questions and a lot of wonderings about things. And often what I will do, because it's almost like a default, it's like, oh, it's an adult, I'll ask them. And so what I do and what I've found works really well is I say, what do you think? Right. And then they think and they go, well, it could be this, or it could be this, or it could be this. And there's some really weird and wonderful things that come up, but it's really fun. And with a little bit of guidance and direction and more questioning. So they've asked me a question, so I ask a question back. And then they have a bit of a think and a wonder. They might talk to a friend or they might investigate a bit more. Then it might be another question. So it's a bit of backwards and forwards until really, once again, we're empowering them to actually have the answers, you know, and they very often do have the answers or can figure it out. And not always, you know, then it becomes a conversation, or what does everybody else think or feel? Or what do you know about this? And then it's like this kind of layering of ideas upon ideas or thoughts and feelings, and you get there. And yes, it takes longer, but again, it's much more empowering. And it's also, you know, giving them the opportunity to realize that they have answers and they have this big, beautiful, amazing brain that they can use and they can figure stuff out. And that's one of the cool things about connecting with nature and actually having that time to kind of slow down and do that. It really helps them so much academically, like to problem solve and work stuff out. And, you know, there's no big rush in nature.
That whole method of what you're saying is basically asking questions back when you get a question. In Western philosophy, it's called the Socratic method of teaching, but it features heavily in mātauranga. So when people ask about what's mātauranga, it's exactly what you described in some cases. It's someone asks a question and the teacher never answers, just says, asks another question. Every time there's a solution, there's another question. And that's how you get to enlightenment. So
yes,
I really like this because I feel like I'm learning a lot, which segues really nicely into Hannah's question. What can we learn from children, we as adults? I'm still a youth, by the way.
So much. I learn so much from them every single day, you know, like, because they'll see something or experience something and they'll want to know about it. Like they have this real desire for understanding and knowledge. And so whether it's through questioning or going to a book if they're, you know, at that age and stage, or doing some research at home, they'll find out and they'll tell you. But more than that, I think the most important thing that we can learn from our children is just how to be in the moment and be in the space and just full of joy and full of wonder for this incredible magical natural world that we have. And that honestly is so inspiring, because I see things through their eyes all the time, and it's like, oh, you know, yes, that is incredible. Like, I can see that now, or why didn't I think of that? Or they are clever and they are creative and they're connected if they're given opportunities. I like to think about what I do as kind of like a three-way relationship in terms of our learning, teaching and learning. And so it's me. No one's kind of, you know, it's not like a hierarchy. Of course, I have responsibilities in terms of, you know, keeping them safe and making sure everyone's kind of happy and healthy. But for me, it is about me, them, and Papa Tuanuku. And together we're in this teaching and learning relationship. And I get as much from them as I'm sure they get from me.
When you said Papa Tuanuku, it triggered something in me. You must get kids from a lot of different backgrounds, a lot of different cultures, ethnicities, but given nature's the commonality, is it hard navigating through all the different backgrounds that kids come with?
Not really. I don't feel like there is. Like, sometimes some kids will get a little caught up on, you know, often we'll talk about the atua, which, you know, link to a lot of kind of nature. You know, if we think about, you know, the moon and the sun and Papa Tuanuku and Ranganui, and sometimes some children can get a little caught up on, you know, that word, or, you know, the idea of atua or guardians or gods. Like, I guess it's that word, but that would probably be the only thing. And it's really, again, just a conversation. You know, this is something that we feel really, you know, feels good for us to kind of talk with and connect to. If it doesn't for you, that's okay. But also, you know, for them to recognize that we're in Aotearoa, New Zealand. You know, this is the belief, you know, system, or, you know, the connection to nature that tangata whenua have, and that's important. And it's like, it's okay if, you know, that doesn't feel good for you, but, you know, we're still going to talk about it, and we're still going to kind of engage with that, because it's great to see other perspectives. And hey, maybe you could tell me something about what you believe, or maybe you could tell everybody something about what you believe. Maybe, you know, you have gods or, you know, nature kind of guardians in your belief system. And actually, it's fascinating, once again, you know, just being open to learning from them and from others.
And it's a very kaupapa Māori philosophy. Every iwi had their own beliefs, so they always say, what are your beliefs? Oh, that's fascinating. What about yours? And there's always space for that in wānanga. Another question here from Hannah is, are there moments that have really stuck with you from your mahi? A heartfelt comment from tamariki, behaviour change, a story? And I've got a follow-up question to that in a sec.
I think definitely the one with Harry and his nature fidgets, and just how passionate, you know, he was about that. But, you know, there's moments every day. Like, even today, we were at Te Puna Quarry Park for nature school, and we went to this little space. We call it the super secret shelter building spot, because everything has to have a fun, crazy name, and then that makes it exciting. And we were there, and just kind of walking around, and you know, that's what I do a lot, is I kind of stand back and I just watch what they're doing, and, you know, and just overhearing their conversation, you know, even today, and it happens every day, and just saying, oh, I just love it here. I just love nature school. Oh my gosh, you know, and just hearing that and seeing them so at ease, so calm, just full of creativity, is just yeah, I just feel so blessed, and just absolutely love what I do, because, you know, some of these kids, they come and they've got anxiety, or things aren't going so well at school for them because, you know, academically they're not where, you know, the national standards, actually no, that doesn't exist anymore, but, you know, where the school says they should be, and that's hard for them. But in nature, they can just be themselves, you know, and they can just, yeah, they can just be themselves, and you can just see that anxiety, you know, drop away, and the communication, the relationships that they have, you know, together are so much stronger. Yeah, it's just incredible. One story that kind of springs to mind that links back to this idea of children, you know, wanting to protect nature would be about a young girl who's been with me for a couple of years now, but when she first came, she was absolutely terrified of bees and hated bees. And, you know, they were just the worst thing ever. And, you know, to the point where I don't know that she would kill one, but she kind of talked like that. And through her experiences, actually just getting to be in a space with bees over time, because initially she was pretty freaked out. She was going to get, you know, stung and killed or something. And that, you know, that's a fear that a lot of people have. But through her experience over time, actually being in and around bees, and through that, you know, learning about them, how important they are, but also how cool they are and how calm they are, to the point where now if there's like a bee on the ground or looking like it maybe is a bit tired or sluggish, she's the first one in there, picking it up gently, taking it over to a flower, putting it on the flower so it can get something to eat, drink. She's the first one to say to people, you know, about how amazing bees are. And no, you don't have to freak out. You don't have to worry. You just, you know, stay still, stay calm. They won't bother you, you know, and you can't get from where she was to where she is now and have that love and passion and care for bees, which are phenomenal insects and just so important, you know, that we all should have that same reverence and respect and care for them. Being in a classroom, looking at a book or watching a video about bees. And it's that sort of thing that gets into their hearts and their souls. And, you know, mine as a teacher or other teachers who do this sort of thing, that, blows your mind, really. And that's the power of nature. And that's the power of time spent in nature and having those experiences. It's not anything I'm doing. I'm just kind of holding the space and facilitating the experience. It's like, you know, we just get magic kind of thrown at us from all angles, and they're thriving because of it. Don't know if I answered the question there.
No, you did. And I've got like 3 or 4 questions that came from that. But just the thing that came out of that for me was how rewarding this must be, just seeing this. Tell me, how old is the oldest person who have gone through this? Like, how old would they be now?
One boy springs to mind, and he came for as long as he could. He wanted to keep coming, but he was going to intermediate school. So he had been with me for a couple of years, and he was moving it from primary school into intermediate, and they weren't so keen on him having one day out of school a week. He would be now, how old would he be now? Like maybe 15? No, maybe 14. You know, and he was he was devastated that he couldn't keep coming, you know, like tears. I was crying too. Like, you know, just the most beautiful boy who, you know, probably struggled a little bit at school, and just felt so at home in nature and with, you know, with the group, and just he could be himself. And yeah, so he would, yeah, I think he would be like 14 now.
Do you know if he still has a connection to nature, if he's still trying to maintain something?
Yeah, so I do keep in touch with most of my families or the kids, you know. I just, you know, I think of them every now and then, so I'll just flick through a message, or, you know, they'll send me a photo of them doing something in nature. And yeah, as far as I'm aware, the last time I heard, you know, he definitely does still have a connection with nature and spends a lot of time outside. And, you know, I know his mum said when he went to intermediate that it was really hard for him at first not being able to have that one day out of school a week. I think it would have probably really helped him actually to settle into that new routine and new system, and kind of the, you know, a bit more pressure being at intermediate, right? And she said, you know, he just wants to be at nature school every day. Yeah, it's kind of heartbreaking that he can't even have one day. But, you know, hopefully things will change. You know, there are some changes happening with the curriculum, and, you know, it's kind of opening up a bit more, and, you know, just be awesome to have these opportunities for kids in schools. And don't get me wrong, there are a lot of schools out there doing some great stuff, but it tends to be, you know, once a term or once a year, kind of a field trip or something like that. And what I've found personally, and what the research tells us, is that it's actually this repeated exposure to nature, to any green space, or, you know, it could even be a blue space, but to familiar environments, you know, our own backyard, our school grounds, a park just down the road that you can walk to. It doesn't have to be a beautiful, you know, fully protected native bush area. Yes, that's amazing, but actually it is this regular contact, repeated exposure over time in these familiar environments that is what makes the difference for these kids in terms of developing their pro-environmental behaviours. And before that, their attitudes and beliefs and values, you know, associated, or, you know, that's going to lead to those pro-environmental behaviours.
All I want to say is, if I got a letter from my wife, would you let a guy in his mid-30s attend these courses?
I get asked that all the time. And for a little while there, I was doing what I called well-being wanders for wahine. I don't know why it wasn't open for guys. I can't even answer that question, but I guess I just felt more comfortable working with women in that space. And yeah, I often think, how can I help connect more adults with nature? Because if they see or have these experiences too, then they're going to maybe value it more for their children, you know? And that's what we want, right? Like, we want our children now to have these opportunities, so that, yes, we've got issues now, yes, things need to be dealt with now, you know, like nature, well, we need to help nature for ourselves, really. But we need to take care of that. But what we need to do is give our tamariki opportunities to develop this relationship with nature, so that when we're gone, that's just normal for them. That's just natural for them. You know, that's just in their heart, it's in their soul. It's just who they are. And so, yeah, I often think, okay, how can we engage adults to have these same experiences so that they fall in love with nature and they actually want to do the things that need to be done that actually us adults need to take responsibility for. It's not our tamariki's job.
I definitely think I'm a product of your philosophy. I was fortunate enough to grow up in the bush, and then even nowadays I spend at least 2 days in the bush doing some sort of mahi. You talked there a bit about wahine, taking wahine out to the environment, and I noticed a lot of your language is really emotive, and there's been research showing that when wahine are put in charge of conservation, you get language like nurture, love, care, whereas men it's protect, restore, very masculine and things.
Yeah.
Do you put conscious effort into those really nice caring words?
I don't think it's conscious. It's because I genuinely have that love for and respect of the natural world. Like I see myself as part of that, not separate. And it's because of my experiences as a child, as a youth, like as an adult, that's just how I feel. Yeah, it's not really conscious. It just kind of comes out.
It must add to the helping people connect. You know, when you have someone like me saying, "Oh, kill and maim and protect," something connect, enhance, love. I imagine a lot of young people would feel better or more inclined to connect that way with those languages.
Yeah, and I guess everybody responds to different things, but for me, that's what I feel in my heart, and I can only be kind of authentic in that way. And I think for children, and research actually backs this as well, that they don't need to hear how broken the world is. They don't need to hear how bad things are. They need to be given opportunities to see how amazing it is, how beautiful it is, so that and I keep saying this, I know, I'm like a broken record, so that, they love it like I do, and like you guys all probably do, because, if I could ask a question, what is it that's led you to be here and to do this? Like, can you think of a memory or a time or an experience or repeated experiences that have, brought you to this place? And I just think that would be fascinating to, find out all the incredible people working in care groups, working in conservation, working in, these areas, trying to protect, heal, nurture, care for. How did they get here, And I could almost guarantee that it has something to do with their experiences of time with nature, seeing the beauty, seeing the wonder, and going, this is amazing. I have to make sure this is around for my kids or for other people, or just because it is so beautiful.
This might be your humility masking it, but I also think you'll have a part to play in it. For me, one of the big reasons I was just addicted to the forest in Haiti was my dad and my uncles. Going out with them was a huge thing. So I do think your involvement is vital. Interesting enough as well, I've got a twin brother, not that phased when it comes to the bush, at least. Both had similar upbringing, similar engagements. So do you have that, where you have some kids that it's just not entirely for them? They'll be there, but it's not quite the path for them.
Yeah, definitely. Not so much at nature school, but at my holiday program. It is very specific, what it's about. But you definitely get the odd child that's like, probably rather be on my iPad. But then you also get kids who surprise you, who are like talking about video games or things like that, and then they're up a tree, or they're like, whoa, look at this cool bug, and this is better than Fortnite, or like Yeah, so I think probably I would say that's the minority, but yeah, of course, there's definitely some kids who they're just like, not bothered. But is that because they haven't had many opportunities? I don't know.
Yeah, I was going to say it might be a case of just finding diversity. Like my brother loves the beach, so maybe exposing them to different aspects of our environment.
Yeah, and that's one good thing about most of the locations that I work in is that, you know, we do have a lot of different kind of environments that we can explore. And yeah, all of the kids, you know, they'll have their favorites, but they'll still, you know, be engaged and enjoy being where they are. And one thing that I do find with sort of new kids coming through is that a lot of them don't really know what to do in that space. So we blend intentional learning experiences and free nature play that's kind of led, you know, by the children. And often when you get new kids, it's like, okay, so what do we do now? Like they don't know how to play in nature. They don't know really what to do. Which is a little sad, really.
Yeah.
It doesn't take them long to get the hang of it, but yeah.
We are fast approaching the end of our time.
Yeah, crazy.
I've got two more quick questions. Quick one. What are your thoughts on playgrounds out in nature? Or do you prefer kids just get right in there and no artificial construct to get in the way?
I don't think we need to spend money on playgrounds. Like nature is the playground, right? In fact, one of the kids said that the other day when Hannah came to do the filming, and he made a comment, something about that. And often when we have new kids come to Nature Kids at one of the locations, there is a playground like on the other side. And occasionally a child will say, oh, we're going to the playground. Can we play on the playground? And one of the kids who's been there for a while will kind of pop in and they'll say, oh, nature is our playground. We've got the trees, we've got the bush, we've got the, and I'm like, yes. Yeah. So yeah, I don't think we need to spend money on playgrounds. Like just let kids explore nature, stand back, give them an opportunity to get dirty, to get up close with things, to climb trees, to lie in the grass, to look up at the sky, you know, if you're lucky enough to live near the ocean or a river or a stream, obviously, you know, making sure that you're taking all precautions, but letting them explore those environments as well. They know what to do. Well, they'll get there. If they don't know what to do, it doesn't take long and they get there. And then they're away. It's there. They have, you know, play urges or exploration urges. It's just part of who they are and part of their brain development. So
last question then is, how can everyone support you or Nature Library? What can we do to help?
I would love anyone.
$1 million.
Yeah. Yes. I would love, I have actually applied for some funding through the Ministry of Education to get my new program, Ka Kano Kids, in schools. So it's designed specifically for green spaces in schools and getting, you know, our tamariki that are in classes out of the classroom and connecting with learning and developing a love of nature at school. So if you're listening to this and, you know, it's something that you kind of believe into on some level is so beneficial for our tamariki, and for, you know, later down the track, them developing those pro-environmental behaviours. I think the first thing there, though, is just how important it is for them, you know, for their well-being, for their growth, for their development, for their academic kind of learning, the environmental stewardship that comes later. But if any of this kind of lights you up a little bit, then talk to your school. I would love you just to talk to your school where your tamariki are and say that you want this for them, and then get in touch with me and I'll get in touch with them, and there's funding available for us to go in there and to work with the classes and to give your tamariki these opportunities, you know, where they can actually be outside every day of the school week, at least for a little while. And if not that, 2 or 3 days a week. And it's easy, it's not difficult, but the benefits are just enormous. I can't stress that enough. And if you check out my website, there's a couple of journal posts there, and I like research, and you know, you can click on links and it'll take you to all the research places. But yeah, you can see some of the benefits for yourself there as well, if that's, you know, something you're interested in. Yeah.
Well, we'll be sure to, I'm sure Hannah will be able to pop that website up on this video once it's done. But truly, from the bottom of my heart, and I think everyone here that's listened, you've captivated us with your kōrero and inspired us in many different aspects. Big takeaway from me is that kids and adults aren't that different. A lot of the learnings you shared, I could easily apply to adults. So once again, thank you for sharing your kōrero, your knowledge and your insights. And I'm sure you're going to be inundated with people wanting to know more once this is once the recording's up online.
Thank you so much. And yeah, I'd love to help anyone, whether it's in a care group or, you know, parents wanting to talk to schools about this. To, as you say, Tame, like kids and adults, not that different, and we all need these opportunities to connect with nature, to develop our relationship, to develop this love. So we actually, yeah, want to look after it, and that's what it needs right now, right? Well, that's what we need now. She'll take care of herself, I think, but we need that, right? We're doing this for us. Yeah.
Thank you so much again.
Thank you, everybody.
So this being the last of our kōrero, the 3 of 3, I'll close us with a karakia. But again, to everyone watching who came live, all our kai kōrero, our speakers, and those watching later on the recordings, big thank you for tuning in. Hannah for running everything behind the scenes really smoothly. Big thanks to you. Before I close us, I'll just mention something that in the karakia that I will use, and quite often we've heard it many a time, everyone hears the sentence, e rongo whakairiake ki runga. Then we follow on with tūturu whakamaua kia tina. Where that comes from is when Tane got back from the heavens with the baskets of knowledge, he wanted everyone to have this knowledge. He wanted it to be disseminated right across the earth. And so he went to his brother Rongo, the god of peace, and said, Rongo, how can I get these baskets of knowledge to everyone? And he said, get them to hang it on their wall above where they sleep. So e rongo whakairiake ki runga. E rongo, the god of peace, o rongo, hang these above or hang these on your wall. So often when we close the karakia and you hear that, e rongo whakairiake ki runga, it's, I really enjoyed what was talked about here, the knowledge that we gained. I'm going to take it and I'm going to put it in my basket that's hanging on the wall. And then we finish with tūturu whakamaua kia tina. We're all in agreement. We're all in agreement. So with that, I'll close our hui. Tēnei tātou, e tuku whakamoemi tiki te wāhi ngaro, ngā te wāhi ngaro tātou e manaki, e tiaki, hoki wairua mai kia tātou, e rongo whakairiake ki runga, tūturu whakamaua kia tina, tina, haumia hui e, tai ki e. Brilliant. Thank you, everyone.